The story, The Compromise, has been written by Vijaydan Detha in Rajasthani language. This story is narrated by the writer. It is about a tall boy who used to live in a boys' hostel. So the name of the boy is Asaran. He is tall, slim, and he has got a round face which is filled with pimples. He has very few friends and he talks to very less people. He prefers to remain alone and he used to talk with his own image in the mirror. For hours, he would do that. For this, other boys at the school hostel teased him, and his mates continued to uh, make fun of this habit of Askaran. He often stared into the mirror at his own image. Often he did so and asked in a furious voice to explain certain things that he had done. This time he becomes furious with his own image and he asks it to explain how he failed in the quarterly exams. Then he hung his head shamefully, and replied feebly to himself that he was not alone to fail. More than half of the class had failed. Then he himself changes his tone to a harsh one again and chides himself that let other people go to hell and fail. He should only be concerned with his own studies, for which he is answerable. He further scolds himself, saying that his family was working so hard to educate him. They sacrifice even food for his education, and he shows such callousness and irresponsibility while studying. Then he changes his expression to a meek one again and answers weakly that the question paper was very difficult this time. Then he reprimands himself again in a tough tone, saying that wasn't the question paper difficult for the ones who have passed? Then answers coyly again, saying, I too worked very hard and prepared well, but at the last moment developed fever and thus could not write well. This way, he plays both roles, himself and the other, and he used to chide himself often whenever he did anything wrong. Once he does that again when he wakes up late in the morning and scolds his image as he had gone to watch a movie, then makes a puppy face and replies meekly, explaining uh, that he was sorry. Suddenly, he is able to see a donkey face in the mirror. He gets scared, looks behind, and sees that there is no donkey there. But when he turns to see himself again in the mirror, his own pimpled face is reflected. This happens again, and he visualizes his ears as long as a dog's ears. He closes his eyes and his real face is reflected again after a while. He hallucinates again and sees horns on his head. So he gets up from the chair with a jerk, not able to control himself. He lights a cigarette and goes to sleep. Few days later, he again picks up his dirty mirror, which is very dusty now, and chides himself that he is now after a girl and not focusing on his studies at all. He reprimands himself for his hopeless situation and asks to tell the truth about himself. He explains that he wasn't doing it, but the reflection doesn't seem to believe it and threatens him with beatings. He also showers slaps on his own cheeks until the face becomes red and his eyes are full of tears. He cries with eyes closed for a while, then opens his eyes and scolds himself severely with dire consequences if he doesn't stop chasing and following that girl. In response, he just stares at his reflection in the mirror, which slowly dissolves. Then he runs outside, buys sweets, return, and asks himself to stop crying in the mirror and eat the sweets. Then he consoles himself, persuades himself to study for a secure and bright future. They are not two different people but one. So he asks his reflection to study sincerely and in turn replies to himself that he will study if the other one he will break the mirror. Next, he smashes the mirror and consumes the sweets that he had brought. Then, as if he had promised to someone, he takes his studies seriously and ultimately becomes a police inspector in life. Askaran's inner self and outer self, they strike a compromise, and ultimately he becomes rich later in life. Perhaps he views his conscience or antaratma in the mirror that guides, antaratma guides us all. Our conscience pricks us all. But Askaran would see it in the mirror. It pricks and nags all of us when we do something wrong. We try to justify ourselves to our own selves when something happens that we know has happened because of our wrongdoing. You might have heard that old Hindi movie song, "तोरा मन दर्पण कहलाए भले बुरे सारे कर्मों को देखे और दिखाए." So he makes a deal with his own conscience and fulfills what needs to be done. His conscience guides him, chides him, and sets him on the path to progress.